All right. So we're going to keep solving trig equations, but we're going to focus on solving some that look like this, where it's not as easy as just adding, subtracting anymore. You have to do a little bit more work. And where the interval isn't just from 0 to 2 pi or general solutions. I'm asking you to find them in a specific interval. So my advice is this. Find your values for x, worry about the interval later. All right. So here's a note that you should keep track of. Whenever you see something like sine squared of x, that reads as sine of x squared. It does not mean sine of an x squared. Right? This squared right here means that you're squaring the output of sine of x, you're not squaring the x in the sine, you're squaring the sine of x. Whatever ratio it spits out, you're going to square it. That's what that means. All right. So as such, this problem is actually a quadratic. So I'm going to treat it like a quadratic, like solving a quadratic then. I would say subtract 1 to begin with. So then you end up with 10 sine squared of x minus 3 sine of x minus 1 should equal 0. And just like we were doing the other day, and a little bit yesterday too, we have to use U-substitution, but it's not going to be the traditional U-substitution. I'm going to let U equal sine of x, if this will write properly. Sine of x. So that means this would become a u squared. So this problem would actually read as 10 u squared minus 3 u minus 1 equals 0. So that's what I have, right? So because it's quadratic, you should think about either quadratic formula or factoring. I'm going to choose factoring. If you need a refresher on how to factor, there are great videos out there. Stop by office hours and I will gladly help you with it, because y'all have different methods depending on if you had Miss Wong or myself or Miss Green or Sumner. So rather than just show you one way and then receive questions of I don't understand what you did, just stop by if you have trouble with it. Okay, so factor real quick. I end up with 2u minus 1 times 5u plus 1 equals 0. Sorry, it's just it's super frustrating because I know I'm not writing super small and this messy, but apparently I am. So solving this like you normally would, you can figure out that u should equal a 1/2. This means that u should equal a negative 1/5 if the factored form would have to be true. So now we can go back and do our substitution. We're not using u, we're using sine of x. So let's do it. Let's hope this doesn't freeze on me like last time and I do it all over again. So sine x should equal 1/2. Sine x equals negative 1/5. By this point, sine of x equals 1/2 should not take you very much effort to solve. I know I'm looking at the first and second quadrant because sine is positive, and I know I'm looking at a reference angle of pi over 6. So I know my answer should be x equals pi over 6 plus 2n pi to cover all the general solutions, and x should equal 5 pi over 6 plus 2n pi to cover everything from the that's going to be coterminal with the second quadrant angle. Okay? But now we have sine of x is equal to negative 1/5, and this is something that we talked about last couple days, but let's do it again. So from here, I'm going to think about it as arc sine, sine inverse. Oh, come on. Arc sine of negative 1/5 should equal my angle. So when you type that in, make sure your calculator is in radians, and if you do so, your calculator should spit out negative 0.201 for your angle. So remember that sine inverse arc sine only covers from pi over 2 to negative pi over 2. And this is about negative 1.57. And pi over 2 equals 1.57. You stupid Chromebook, write the 7. So this angle is somewhere in here. I don't know. It won't write. So just pay attention to what I'm saying. Maybe write down a piece of paper. I'm not doing this twice. So it's negative 0.201 plus 2n pi. That's where one of your angles are. But if you want sine to be negative, you found the one that's going to be in the fourth quadrant. You need to find the one that's going to be the second quadrant. So to get that other possibility, you do sine minus the angle you just have type that in the calculator. You should get 3.341. And if that looks like a 9 to you, then you didn't type in the calculator. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, it's just super annoying right now. So 3.341 plus 2n pi. This is one source. This is your second source. So notice, for these problems, you should have 4 different answers because they came from 2 different factors, and each factor produced 2 answers. Okay. So now that I have all my solutions, I need to take into account the interval. So the interval was from 3 pi to 6 pi. Okay? So 3 pi can be thought of as over 6, 18 pi over 6. Or if you type that in the calculator, 3 pi is also the same as 9.425. So 6 pi is 36 pi over 6, or 18.85. So all you have to do is take the solutions, the general solutions that we found, those four, and find coterminal angles. So just keep adding 2 pi to your answers to see if they're going to fall either between 18 pi over 6 to 36 pi over 6, or if you want the decimal representation, from 9.425 all the way to 18.85. So for the first part, maybe if I get rid of my camera, this will not lag as much. The pi over 6 plus 2n pi could give me 7 pi over 6. That doesn't work. No, it couldn't. Stupid Chromebook. 12, it would give me 13 pi over 6, which is less than 18, so that doesn't work. Do it again. We get 25 pi over 6. That could work. Do it again. We get 37 pi over 6. That won't work. So from the pi over 6 reference angle, I get one solution, and it's 25 pi over 6. If I change that to the 5 pi over 6 plus 2n pi, stupid Chromebook, I hate you, right? We get 17 pi over 6. That's right outside the range. I do it again. I add one more. I get 29 pi over 6. That works. I do it again. I'm going to end up with 41 pi over 6. That doesn't work. So this is my solution right now. Those two from the come from these two right here. So now I do the same thing, but with the other angles. So negative 0.201 plus 2n pi. I don't know about you guys, but it is super windy right now. Oops. 6.28 plus a negative 0.201. Using my calculator, I find one reference angle is 6.079. That doesn't work. Add another 2 pi, and I get 12.366. That works. Add another one, and I get 18.66. God, I hate that these sixes don't capture right. So that's a solution. That's a solution because they fall within the interval I was given. They fall between 9.46, and 18.85. So I do it one last time with the 3.34. I guess that one right there, I'm not even going to bother at this point because I'm getting aggravated. So I add 3.34 plus 2 pi. On my calculator, I get 9.62. That falls within the interval. So I do it again. And I also get 15.9. That's also in the interval. So if I try it one more time, I would see that it would fall out because I would get 22.18, which is 8. God damn it. Which is outside. So my answers are just these 4 circled problems. Sorry, there are 6 of them. These 2 in the yellow, these 2 in the green, the 1 in the red, and the 1 in the blue.